fresh start, a new beginning. This is what Darwyn Cooke's The New Frontier gives us. It reimagines an old and forgotten world, like the Losers and the original Suicide Squad. It adds both old, popular, and new into a world that gives off a feeling of not only nostalgia, but weirdly, reinvention. This grandiose exploration of every corner of the DC universe is the hallmark of everything DC should be. Let's peek in. The vibes this book gives off are second to none other than maybe Watchmen, which makes sense considering Cooke said himself that Watchmen was a big inspiration. There's some big parallels, most importantly John Henry, but we'll get back to him later. Instead of going on the whole video talking about how great the comic is and why you should read it, I'm going to examine the individuality of each of these characters and how this affects the superhero medium. Perhaps the greatest point of nostalgia, and also one of the most inspiring parts of the books, lies in issue 2. This particular part focuses on Ted Grant, the Wildcat. Now the original generation of heroes are gone. Ted has no one to fall back on. Our Man is presumed dead, and the rest of the heroes are just puppets for their government. Ted doesn't have much hope to rely on. The movement he helped start is long gone now, and the only chance he has to prove himself is in this ring. This ring. Ted's in this fight with Muhammad Ali, formerly known as Cassius Clay, and he's taken too much. He's completely out of it. The somewhat senile man tries to distract himself with visions of vacation and wisecracks. Now whether he's actually going crazy, which I think is unlikely, or this is just a coping mechanism is up to the reader, but regardless he circles back into his melancholy. It's pretty brutal here in the ring, the lowest of lows. At this moment I think there's almost no doubt he's going to lose. The torn up old man needs smelling salts to get back. The fact that DC's superhero, in a world of wonder and heroism, deals with struggles as personal as this, is important. I think the issue with a lot of modernist superheroes is they try to condense what being a hero means. It doesn't just have to be about defeating the villain of the week or winning a space battle. Everyone has conflicts of their own, and the way New Frontier goes around it is having relatable human struggles. Even if you went in having no idea who Ted Grant is, or hell if you've never even read a comic before, you feel sympathy. You automatically want to see him win this fight. You're drawn in because of the story, not because of the character. It could be anyone really and it would have the exact output. But for New Frontier, Ted Grant is the symbol for this type of relatable ideal of heroism. And I'm glad Cooke chose him and thought, hey, let's shed some light on this guy. Anyways, back in the ring, Ted hears something. Shouts of encouragement from his colleagues and friends. Of course Ted thinks he's done, but I'm sure he appreciates the sentiment from his caped compadres. Can't believe I just said that. So at this point, it seems like he's pretty much screwed. I mean, this guy's fighting Prime Ali, and he got his butt handed to him. He's faced with impossible odds. Sweat and water run down his black eye. But then he realizes something. He's a damn superhero. He's fought much worse than this guy. I mean, so naturally he wins. It may seem like a relatively simple spread of panels, sure, but it means more than you may think. This was his last chance to be a hero again. To restore his name in front of his friends, and in honor of what he's lost. He couldn't let all those years fighting for a cause he believed in resort to nothing. Ted has fought too hard for too long just to lose. I bet in his head he was thinking about the old times, about what it meant to be a hero, and now he can give that new meaning. This was his time to finally cement who he is and what he fights for. He's the Wildcat, suit or not, and he fights for victory over hardship. Now that we've seen how down-to-earth a superhero can be, and we felt the overcoming feeling of being outdated, let's look at a different type of relatability, one which lies in fitting in. Now Martian Manhunter was taken from his world and brought to an entirely new one that he doesn't know anything about, right off the bat. We have something to sympathize with. Whether it's moving into a new house or switching schools, we've all pretty much felt how it is to be fundamentally out of place, in an area we aren't familiar with. Manhunter expands that, but obviously through the superhero lens. A lot of us didn't have a choice over whether we wanted to start over, and neither does John Jones. He brings with him quite literally an alienated feeling. Though he may at first be a little confused, he receives a word of advice. His first friend in his dying words tells him to be careful, and even apologizes for bringing him to Earth away from his planet. And though he knows nothing about Earth or its people, his first impression of them is a good one, which inspires his choice to do good and explore. And so he does, learning more about the people of this mysterious planet through caricatures he sees on television. He realizes human beings are far more complex than he originally thought, and his desire to do good pushes him into becoming a police detective, adapting to his new environment. He finally fits in, until he doesn't. Now for this part, all the background information you really need to know here is that there's an alien called the Center that I presume uses telepathy to communicate with these cultist guys. And also John, but I'll get back to that. Now by the time John arrives with his partner, Batman's already there, of course. So while Batman is busy fending off the cultists, John takes the opportunity to try and save the little boy they have hostage. Except he gets caught in the crossfire. Literally. His Martian weakness to fire basically stunts him, and all he can really do is just sit there and suffer. This moment reminds John that he can never completely fit in as long as he's a Martian, and his alien weakness almost makes him completely unable to help a boy who could have been seriously hurt otherwise. Even if the boy does get saved, if he hadn't been, he would have felt all the blame. Adapting to the unknown isn't easy, but for John it seems almost traumatic. The impending doom of the Center lies still on his back as he realizes a new world also means new challenges, one that he'll have to take on alone. Now for entertainment or maybe even for guidance, Martian Manhunter looks to the Fleischer Superman cartoons for help. He sees Superman as this paragon of everything he strives to be, except it only makes him think about how the people of Earth will never truly treat him like that, like a true hero. The people have a misconception about how Martians are, and are scared of things that they don't understand. He laughs, not at the discrimination, but because of how stupid it is. He's knowledgeable being a Martian himself, and seeing humans paint the Martians this way almost delves into hilarity. John, an alien himself, will never be respected because of the way he looks in the fearful society. I think in the story, the main emblem of this type of adversity in the world is most prominent in John Henry. Now we already know from the beginning where our characters are in this narrative. Superman and Wonder Woman are seemingly government puppets, Batman and the JSA are outlaws, and Hal's still a pilot with a dream. Now Cooke said, how do we get this pre-established cake and add another subtextual layer? That's John Henry, an extra layer of depth in the funfetti world of DC Comics. By this point, the idea of extreme justice was already explored by Wonder Woman, so it's not too much of a stretch to say he got inspired by other heroes of the time to give his out. And who's more deserving than the KKK? Throughout the run, all we really get to see of his story are these poetic little excerpts about how he's killing racists left and right. So we already knew he was a savior of the people and an executioner of the wicked. He stands for freedom where there is none, and a place the government refuses to touch. One man trying to do it all alone, until the world swallowed him back in. The death of John Henry is one of the biggest moments in the story because it makes John realize something about this world. The alienation and self-doubt were enough already, but seeing humans kill each other over just skin color is the nail in the coffin. He has to leave this forsaken world. The responsibility seems too much for him. He doubts himself even, and he thinks he won't be able to adapt to this place. So he quits this world, to move back to his own. He needs a compass that presents itself in King Faraday. Now Faraday makes kind of a dumb decision and decides to go right under a flaming rocket ship about to launch off. Even though John has seen horrors of humanity and men like this before, he does decide to save him. Even to an outsider, life is still precious to him. The thing is, saving Faraday means leaving this world behind. Now at this point, you'd think John would completely lose it. But actually he uses this as a moment to regain his touch with humanity. If he's gonna be stuck here, he might as well learn what it is to really be human. Not just by watching movies, but by talking to someone, who if his telepathy serves him right, isn't malicious. After all this pain, he needs someone who deep down really is a good person. That's who Faraday is, and that's why John doesn't escape. He plays a game of chess and takes the opportunity to learn more, while also giving him a warning of the coming threat. He realizes understanding Faraday may be the key to understanding himself. Giving Faraday a chance is his way of giving humanity one last chance to prove themselves, and King proves himself trustworthy, and John realizes the way to adapt to the world isn't just to be human or Martian, but a mix of both. So they set off, Martian and human, to fight for the same cause. Even though they're different, they still carry the same ideals. And I think by the time he's giving Superman handshakes, he understands what it's like to be a hero. He gets it, and he understands what it's like to be treated like one now. It feels good. Now tying back into the main plot, the aforementioned Center is back, and in control of John's mind. He's prepared this whole time for this threat, but yeah, unfortunately it does take him over. John has to be killed before he can kill anyone else, so King obviously makes a loophole. He drains the evil straight out of John and instantly perishes. The reason why this is important is mainly because of how this affects John. For such a long time, John has had this feeling of not belonging, or feeling out of place. King's death is the final stage in his adaptation. This huge traumatic experience had to happen for John to become the hero he needs to be. While yes, most superheroes have their loved ones die for character development reasons, what makes this different is King helped him understand humanity. He had not just a guide whom he learned to be human from, but a friend who he could connect to, one that helped him settle in. And so with Faraday being gone, all that guidance from now on has to be self-enforced. Remembering Faraday and his ideals gives him a reason to keep fighting. I personally think the best part of the New Frontier isn't the setting, the vibes, or the fights. The best part was the people. Not the superheroes, but the people. These characters are fleshed out on such a deeply personal level that you can't help but laugh with them, or cry with them. By the end of it all, they become your friends. You've gone on a journey with them through it all. Not these big larger-than-life archetypes that can beat up King Kong every afternoon, but the actual human side, even if they aren't human. The art of putting characters before caricatures is on full display here. A lot of modern superhero media has fallen victim to having large action set pieces or unnecessary comedy blasted through our ears. Not dissing anyone, but you know who I'm talking about. They always forget the most important thing is having a story. Here, they found the right balance of relatability, while also giving off this grand scale. And that's what I like about the New Frontier. Since it seems DC is heading back towards this direction, I'm glad they chose this as an example of how their story should be told. And I'm excited to see how they're going to do it from here.